Welcome to the Cherry Picker, the horror movie podcast where we like to kill people, but not really. I'm your host, Zach Cherry, and with me as always is...
Karen! Eddie of Edward is True.
And today we are discussing Halloween 2018. It just says Halloween up there, but I guess it's just called Halloween. So
It's just
how do we?
called Halloween.
This is the third movie in this franchise with that title. So it does get a little confusing from time to time, but we are doing this in preparation for the inevitable release of Halloween Ends. That's October 14th this year, 2022. Yeah. So we're starting with Halloween H40 or H40. If you will. Next month we're gonna.
I just call it Halloween 2018. That's what I call it.
Yeah. Next month we're gonna do Halloween Kills, and then we're gonna cap it off at the end of October with Halloween Ends. And normally, like when we do franchise, I say when we do. We've only done like two so far, but you know we like to start at the beginning, and I think just because the new movie is coming out, it just made more sense to do the Blumhouse trilogy. So then, you know, in the future, we can go back to the beginning and do them all in order, at least up until, you know, the chapters before.
Is that the real reason, though?
Well, what do you think the reason is?
Well, I'm under the impression you kind of want to get these out of the way as quickly as possible. That's just the vibe I get.
Not necessarily. I just don't think that the new one is coming out, but don't reveal my hand here.
All right.
Anyway,
I'll zip the lip.
From here well, I'll just say that, you know, this might be a very lively debate, or this episode might piss you off and you'll turn it off. You know, whatever the case may be, I'm sure 50% of you will be happy and the other 50 will not. So just putting it out there.
Or maybe 50% will be happy with one of us and not with the other, and the other 50 vice versa, you know? We'll see. I'm not sure.
Are you revealing? Hand. Yeah, you kind of are. But
no,
okay.
No, cause I said maybe. Supposition.
Okay.
Stick around, find out.
Let's get into a synopsis. Do you have one for us?
I do. It's been 40 years since Laurie Strode survived a vicious attack from the Shape on All Hallows Eve. After being incarcerated all these years in an institution, killer Michael Myers manages to escape when his bus transfer goes horribly wrong. Laurie now faces a terrifying showdown when the masked madman returns to Haddonfield, Illinois. But will she have the constitution or the backup from her own relatively estranged family, whom she's totally responsible for antagonizing, necessary to finally take down the mute slasher this Halloween 2018? Good? Did it work?
That was perfect.
Hooray!
If anyone couldn't figure that out, that was our wonderful Judy Greer impersonation.
I love her. I've been listening to her voice forever.
I do. Okay. Let's start off talking about her. Because just since we're already with it and her ridiculously monotone delivery. Because okay, here's the thing with anything I talk about in this episode of this podcast, I'm gonna try my best not. I mean, the only movie that comes after this that's available, so like right now, is Halloween Kills. So I don't want to talk about those movies because we're obviously gonna do them next month. So there's probably gonna be a lot of comparisons to the older movies. That's gonna happen. Just know that that's the case. So I just wanted to say, out of the three children of Laurie Strode, which at this point is now Jamie Lloyd, played by Danielle Harris, John Tate, I think it's John Tate, Josh Hartnett, and Karen. I know she has a different last name in this because she's married, but whatever. Judy Greer. Karen is my least favorite of all the fucking Strode children.
Okay.
But the thing is, like, Judy Greer is my favorite of all of those actors. So it's so disappointing to me that, like, when this movie was first announced and, you know, the cast was announced and it's just like, Judy Greer, like, yeah, I'm down for it. And then just to, like, see the movie and see her character and just, it's almost like she's non-existent in this movie to a certain degree. Like, she turns up at the end, but I was just so disappointed with everything, with just how they kind of handled the relationship between her and Laurie and all of that. And just, like, you know, we talked about Judy Greer in the Cursed episode, how she's basically that movie's saving grace. And here, I mean, I don't think that she's the weakest link, but she's not doing this movie any favors.
Okay. For me personally, I wonder, I mean, I've been a fan of Judy Greer ever since the first time I saw Jawbreaker in the late 90s. I didn't see it in the theater, but I did see it on cable, I think, and I was just kind of like, why didn't I see this in the theater? This is amazing. Yeah. And she was one of the key reasons for that. I mean, there are a lot of reasons, but I started finding her in other stuff, and I was always really pleasantly surprised. And this is one of those things where I had to wonder, I know she's capable of digging deeper than this, like the monologue case in point. And it just made me think, was she directed to deliver it just flatly and completely emotionless? Because there actually could be a case to be made for Karen if she had empathy she was fighting with, if there seemed to be some kind of inner conflict, you know, about like what she did. And even if she has complete resignation, like if there were some kind of like, she's so incredibly self-entitled to her point of view, just kind of, but you know what, at the same time, I can't blame Judy Greer because the character on paper has lines like, I hate to say I told you so, after Laurie, in tears, who's obviously having a horrible night, has started drinking again. She's talking about Michael Myers, and she's not doing it to ruin anybody's good time. And Allison seems to be the only one kind of perceiving that. And she can watch her leave and go like, I hate to say I told you so, but, you know, I was expecting her, I don't even know if she said something like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if the next thing out of her mouth would have been like, I'm glad, actually, that you got to see that. I mean, that's out in the parking lot. That's something like that.
Yeah, she does say that.
Yeah, that whole attitude.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a good point, because, and you know, I want to talk a lot about David Gordon Green and Danny McBride. And I think that, you know, like, obviously Judy Greer is a very capable actress, and, you know, we've seen gold from her, and like that monotone monologue, it's just immediately, like, my first thought just with this character is there's a lot of exposition to her, kind of like her backstory and just like the past and how she was taken in by Child Protective Services and all this. And I compare her more, like, I'm going to make more of a comparison to John and H2O than Jamie, because, you know, with Jamie Lloyd, we never saw a relationship with her and Laurie Strode because they never existed together in the same movies. And I just feel that, like, everything that Jamie Lee Curtis and Josh Hartnett get to work with on screen, like, they don't have to have conversations about, you know, the backstory and stuff. Like, you know, in H2O, there's like, you know, I think he says something, he's like, look, I know it's that day. And she's like, and what day is that? You know, and it's just like, you know, there's just a look like, oh yeah. And you get a sense of, like, all of the trauma of, you know, the last 17 years of their life together in that one, like, breakfast scene, or of, them together in the kitchen. And then especially, which is one of my favorite scenes in H2O, is when she catches him walking down the street after he's steals the wine, and they have that confrontation right there. You know, they're like, what do you think you could do? Just wander around town? Like, just, like, I love that. Like, it's so melodramatic. And here we have nothing. Like, there's no, like, the first meeting that we have between Karen and Laurie is at the restaurant. And, you know, most of the scenes before that is just Karen just being, like, talking about Laurie and just being like, oh yeah, you know, I did invite her, but you know, like your grandmother is an agoraphobic. She doesn't like doing this. Like, you know, it's just a really bad idea. You'll understand whatever she says. So it's just, there's a lot of, that's the thing that, like, right away that I don't like what this script does with her character, is that there's just talking. It's just explaining the relationship rather than showing us. And that's like screenwriting 101, show don't tell. And everything with Karen and Laurie's relationship is tell. And that already diminishes the quality of that relationship for me. And the funny thing is that I remember actually for Halloween Kills, I was watching press with Jamie Lee Curtis and Judy Greer. They were together and they were explaining one scene that they had actually shot for 2018, which for whatever reason got cut, which, you know, we'll talk more about when we get to David Gordon Green and Blumhouse and all that. But I guess there was a scene where Laurie does go to her office that occurred earlier. So this would have been the first meeting of those characters. And that scene sounds to me like it was the equivalent of what that scene was in H2O with Laurie and John, where it was kind of like the airing of the grievances, which is kind of the theme for me in this episode. But it's the Festivus. But it just seemed like that was the moment where we would have kind of, you know, had, you know, not necessarily the entire history of these characters thrown out there, the emotions, but just kind of like the present day, like where they're at and how they interact together. And Jamie Lee Curtis described it as like they were given their cues from the director, and he never yelled cut. So they continued the shot. Because I guess that they had left the office and they walked down the hallway, and the camera remained in the office, from what I understand, but you could still hear them talking, like going down the hall and arguing down there. And I just think like that to me sounds like not only that's so innovative of like just a shot or technique that they could have used, because it's almost like even though we're like now physically distanced from this argument, like we can still hear it. It's still going on. And the irony as well of the fact that I don't know how well this is established in the movie, but I believe that Judy Greer's character is a child psychologist. I think that information is available, or like a counselor for children, something to do with children. So just kind of like the how that relates to her childhood and her life, and just like kind of being in this environment that is for you know, counseling and therapy and all this, and it's just, you know, here's these characters having this moment, but instead, like a scene like that probably would have been so effective in telling the story of these characters, especially characters, you know, when you have a franchise that you've negated 40 years worth of content so you can restart it and you know, introduce a new character that we're not familiar with. It just seems like it's a poor way to introduce us to her by just jumping to the dinner scene and having lines like that, like, I hate to say I told you so, but, you know.
But, I mean, even though I brought up that line and everything like that, I mean, I wouldn't, there are a lot of lines that come out of Karen's mouth that I wouldn't have written that way. That said, the way it's structured now, I can understand why, even though I'd love to see just that scene play out. Even just on its own.
Where are they? Where are these scenes? Like, release them. Why is there no commentary for the movie as well?
They know there's going to be a trilogy, so they'll be released with the box set.
Yeah, obviously.
Come on, this isn't your first day at the races. Come on, but but the way the movie is structured now, because this is also the first time that Laurie has had a grandchild she can interact with. And that's because that's the relationship that we're supposed to be honing in on, or at least not even, I mean, the relationship certainly, but also just like the linkage, like because there's supposed to be, I think, more of an investment between the two of them so that scene can pay off for them. And maybe they were worried about if they expose too much about Karen too early, maybe it's less impactful when Karen finally returns to the house and to the basement and sees the pistol with her initials on it, the KS, which apparently she took her mother's maiden name as Kara Strode, unless Laurie married someone else with an S last name. I don't know.
Karen Strode. Kara Strode is from Halloween 6.
Karen Strode. I just watched a movie reaction to Curse of Michael Myers 2, so I've got them both bouncing around in my head. Sorry. That's why I was mindful enough to say the first time Laurie has a grandchild she can interact with, because in Curse of Michael Myers she has a grandchild, but she's not alive anymore in that continuity.
So baby Steven,
baby Steven. But anyway, I mean, it's a criticism for me, but it isn't quite the deal breaker for me that it is for you, because this is the thing. I see the intention with almost every decision that is made with this film. I can see what they're going for most of the, I think all the time, and I think that's why I am more forgiving with it. But there are still things about it that absolutely make me roll my eyes and go, let's just keep going. Well, like case in point, later in the movie, because we will be jumping around, I know. Alice, just the random moment where Allison finally makes it to her grandmother's backyard, falls onto the ground with the leaves and sees, oh my gosh, it's mannequin parts, and just peels out this blood-curdling scream for no reason. It's not there. It didn't. It's happening right in the middle of Laurie checking the doors, and that was not getting monotonous for me. That actually, the tension's high. Keep it going. Let's follow her in real time. You've actually created a moment, and and they broke it up with this ridiculous moment. Now I can understand they're probably just trying to let us know Allison finally got there, and it's like, yeah, like she should have been there a long time ago. She was literally just like down the road. So unless she ran 2 miles in the wrong direction and then realized, oh fuck, see, that we should have seen. But just to kind of remind us that Allison is in the movie. Like that's something that I don't like. But when I watch it, I'm just kind of like, you're trying to give more, I don't know, just more filler, just to kind of like bulk it up and let us know where she is and everything like that. But again, it's something I would never put in the movie. Like, why take out the scene between Laurie and Karen, but leave in the scene where Allison is screaming at mannequin heads? I mean,
again, there's a lot that I have to say about David Gordon Green and all that, and I don't want to, I want to save that for later, because it's gonna go off into this huge tangent. But I guess you've kind of shown your hand here, and I'll just say that probably a lot of people who are at least like familiar with me and my channel know, like, this is not a Halloween movie that is high up on my list. And I found this last rewatch that I did last night for this episode to be quite a chore to get through of watching this movie. And I was really, I hadn't watched this since I'd seen Halloween Kills. So I hadn't really kind of had it in the perspective of seeing it with Halloween Kills. And not gonna like go on a full-on ranking here. I think I would prefer this one to that, but it's just the thing that I kind of honed in on that has kind of escaped me, for like the 10 times that I've seen this movie now, or however many it's been in the last 4 years now. This movie's been out, believe it or not. I think that my main issue, or just the thing that like kind of grates on me, is that they're trying to really show this movie as though it's set in reality. They're trying to make it seem as though it's as realistic as possible. Like this is like society today. Everything about it is grounded and realistic. But then there's so much like dissonance in the fact that there are things within the movie that are not realistic at all. Like Michael Myers is not a realistic being. Like he's human, he's superhuman, he cannot die. Like there's just like he's getting fingers blown off, he's getting stabbed everywhere and like is still coming back to life. So it's like I think that for me, like the Halloween franchise and all of the movies within it have a different meaning to everyone. And there are things in each movie that are great, even the bad. I'm sure if you looked within Resurrection, there's something in there that maybe it's confidence, like it's box office confidence. That's the compliment I will pay that movie. But it's this like Blumhouse series, I've just come to accept it's not for me. These are not the Halloween movies that I like. I prefer the older ones, as bad and as campy as they might be. I have a lot of fun with them. Those are fun movies. And this movie, because it's trying so hard to be grounded in reality, it kind of like takes the piss out of it for me. There's no fun to be had here. There are certain elements and especially characters that we can talk about later that I find fun, but just sitting through it and watching it, I actually did not fall asleep, and I consider that a bad thing because it was almost like I just need to get through this, that I stayed awake for it. If that makes sense.
Yeah, like so you don't have to sit through it again to actually
exactly probably something like that, or I didn't feel like the comfort of it, that I could allow myself to relax and just be like, oh, okay, yeah, this is a good movie. Right. I'm enjoying myself so much that I'm just gonna fall asleep right now, rather than just being on edge and just being like, okay, not even on edge, but just struggling.
Well, I'll say this most recent viewing, I think I got a lot. All the criticisms came through very, very crisp and clear to me. Like I've had enough time with this movie that I think I know where it sits in my ranking and everything. But I do have to say it's higher for me because I do find fun, and I don't know whether it was fun that was placed there intentionally or not. It just works. As there are two comedic beats in particular that I associate with Laurie, and they're both her going full throttle like Laurie, like kind of like, but still kind of being perceived as like crazy lady of the neighborhood maybe. And the first one is her actual first interaction with Karen when they're in the house together, in Karen's house. It's just like, boom, bang, you're dead. And you just hear Karen's kind of like, again, relentless droning on in that tone of like, the world is not a bad place. The world is a wonderful place full of love and hearts and candy kisses and valentines and cupids with bows. And like, whatever the fuck she's saying. Puppy dog tails that wag because they're happy because they're part of a family and part of this balanced breakfast, like whatever the fucking thing.
I do appreciate one thing that she says in that scene. If there's one thing about Karen, because Laurie says, "I am trying to protect and prepare you," and she's like, "And I am trying to prepare dinner for my family."
But even just like her whole demeanor, and I mean Jamie Lee's in that scene, like it is on a comedic level, like the kind of like mania she is bringing into the room. And I get the same thing after she has that moment of recognition with Michael in the mirror on the second floor in Vicky's house, and Julian's house, right? Because Vicky's there. See. Anyway, so Julian's house.
I'm here for you.
And thank you. You got me. But no, so she's seeing the reflection and everything. The point is she sees the reflection, and then she decides to like go around the corner to go, pursue him. She runs into Frank, and the two of them, and she's like, Jesus Christ, Frank, fuck! And just like the anger is so familiar, like they know each other, but it's also just like it doesn't take away from the harrowing threat, because I feel like if you were scared out of your mind, most people, and you ran into someone you knew and saw, if not every day now, every day at a certain point in your life, to the point where you know who they are, they know who you are, and then there would just be that, would you just stop with, oh my God, you can't walk around like that. I don't know, it comes from this very authentic place, and it makes me laugh out loud every time I see it. So I love that. I also love, oh God, I laughed so hard when we first got those trick-or-treaters bumping into Michael Myers on the street, when he's, on the prowl, as it were. And he doesn't even really take them in. He's too busy being a kid himself in a candy store, as it were. And I just hear this inner monologue in my head for him, just kind of like, oh my God, where do I start? It all looks so good, And then he's like, well, I can't do it out here. Oh, an open garage. That'll be private, Like, I am having my own kind of like wonderful Mr. Toad's Wild Ride through particular sections of this movie. And like I said, it's rarely the stuff that is put front and center, I think, with the intention of making me laugh. Like, I'm not a huge fan of the cops talking about the banh mi sandwiches. But at the same time, it doesn't do to me what the cops in Halloween 5 do to me, because they're not, it's subtler. There's no whoop, whoop, background noises
there
to
may
tell
as well
me
have
how
been.
wacky
there
and
may
funny.
as well have
no,
been.
but,
That's all I'm gonna say.
No, but there isn't, and that's something that I actually appreciate, because it's like it's one of those things where it's like, this will be over in 25 seconds, Watching these two guys who obviously, it's not one of my favorites, but it's again one of those. Keep the movie going. Keep the movie. Okay, and it's over. Okay, we're getting to it. We're getting to it. But again, I would never say it's a perfect movie, but there's enough to carry me through for most of it. It never occurred to me before, because I was just like, I know we've had this discussion off pod many times, and with your affinity, shall we say, for H2O. And that I
wouldn't really call it an affinity. I just
comparatively, then. Compared to this movie, I'd call it an affinity, but your relative affinity. But it's I was wondering while I was watching the movie at one point. I was just kind of like, what are there any moments that like I can pinpoint like why I prefer this ride to H2O in general? Like, there are a lot of things that I like about H2O that we can talk about when we do that pod, but with this one of the things, and sometimes I'm just a shallow bitch, but the aesthetic of Jamie Lee Curtis with that wig, I see Laurie. When I see Jamie Lee Curtis in H2O, I see Jamie Lee Curtis. And I know she's trying to be incognito. I know she's trying not to look like Laurie Strode and everything like that. I don't know. But it looks too much like Jamie Lee Curtis, and I feel like I'm watching Jamie Lee Curtis make a movie about Halloween. Whereas when I watch this, I feel like I'm watching Laurie Strode. And that makes me happy.
Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess. I mean, like, the thing with Laurie is that, who is Laurie Strode? Like, really? Like, as far as I'm concerned, like, the only Laurie Strode that is the authentic Laurie Strode is the 1978 Laurie Strode, because every iteration of her that has come since then is arguably a different character. Even Halloween 2, that is not the same Laurie Strode, even though, like, canonically and sequentially that is the same night, but it's a completely different characterization. Like, she's been reduced to this damsel in distress. Like she's like, like it's like they took all of like the weakest parts of Laurie in 1978 and then made her that entire character in that movie. H2O, which is that's my favorite interpretation of Laurie, just because that's the one that I feel like really rises to the occasion on a very thematic, because the whole like point of that movie is just like blood is thicker than water, H2O. Resurrection, that is a dumpster fire of a 3-minute cameo. I'm not even gonna touch the fucking Scout Taylor Compton Laurie's, and then this, like, I enjoy this iteration of Laurie. I just feel that it's so like it's just turned up way too high. Like there's no reason that like it's almost like, oh, we're making a movie about trauma, and like Jamie Lee Curtis is like, okay, great, I understand the assignment, but then she just showed up to work and she's like brought all these unnecessary things, and everyone was just too scared to tell her like, oh, well, we don't need you to be that character, but she's like, anyway, I had this really good idea that I'm going to do this and this, and they're like, okay, great, use it, and it just kind of turned into this like full-blown thing where just like 40 years ago she fell over a stair banister and got chased across the street. Wow. and it's haunted her life every day since, and there it's funny because there is a line in the movie from Dave, Vicky's boyfriend.
That's what you're reminding me of right now. Go on.
But no, because he's just like, well, like, it's because the whole thing was like, in that moment the scene was trying to negate all of the other movies and just being like, well, wasn't that her brother or whatever? And they're like, no, that's just a bit that people said to like make themselves feel better. So it's just like, in that moment, like, I'm listening to him and it's just like, no, it was her brother. Like, everything that he's saying is making sense. And yeah, this was a horrible thing that happened to someone 40 years ago, but like, in comparison to like all of the other movies where arguably the threat got worse and worse and worse, it doesn't, like, the everything that I see in H2O, that even though this movie is trying to be more grounded in reality, where I see Laurie in H2O, that feels more real to me. Even though you think that like that's her playing Jamie Lee Curtis, that version of her history and her past and her trauma, that to me feels like this is someone who, like, it's more relatable because this is someone who has dealt with this trauma and now they're trying to hide it. They're trying to cover it up with alcohol or, going into hiding, changing their name, whatever. That makes such a more interesting story to me because that is a conflict that Laurie as a character is going to need to overcome in that story. Whereas in H4O 2018, it's like everything is just all out in the open. There are no surprises. There's no secrets with her. She knows who she is. She is that person unapologetically. And there's really no room for her to grow as a character throughout this movie. And it's there for me, like, there is no conclusion to her story here. And I mean, like, I don't want to jump ahead to whatever they go with, like, kills and that, but I'm still waiting for that. I'm still waiting for this trajectory of what the purpose is of seeing her story 40 years later and what this all means, because I'm getting nothing from it. It feels so contrived to me to have this situation where it's just like, here we are 40 years later, it's this one incident that happened. Everyone deals with trauma in a different way, but it's like, it just feels unrealistic to me.
Okay, because it's interesting. Like, what you criticize is like the kind of crux of like what makes it like what that moment with Dave going off about, like, kind of like, minimizing what happened and comparing it, to something, so it shouldn't have that much of an impact or whatever. Coming from that point of view and everything, that moment for me is about just Vicky's response, telling him, shut up, because
But
you're talking about something somebody... No, okay.
But no. But the thing is, like, but even then, like, they're so, the writing is so confused with its characterization of everyone, because in that moment, I see Vicky telling him to shut the fuck up, because it's like, be sensitive to Allison's feelings. But then the next scene, when Allison is at school, and she sees Laurie, and they're having that exchange, and Laurie gives her $3,000 or whatever, and then instead of being like, thank you or whatever, Allison turns around and just being like, why can't you get over it? Like, say goodbye to Michael. So it's like, you know, there's no reason for her to, you know, like, for them to be sensitive to how Allison is perceiving this, when Allison feels the same way. It's like all the entire town is literally like, this didn't just affect you. This affected all of us. There are people who are dead. 5 people died, as they said, and everyone else has moved on from it except for Laurie. So this is a story that I feel is like, this is about Laurie, and I feel like the story couldn't be anything farther than Laurie's story. That rhymes.
There you go. Okay, so there's a lot to address now. I should have been taking notes. Fuck. Okay. I don't remember the original point I was trying to make, so I'll get to it eventually. What you just brought up in terms of like Laurie. Okay. I feel like what you're criticizing is an inconsistency for character with Allison, kind of like being perceived as feeling one way about her grandmother's situation, and I will call her grandmother for the rest of the pod, and then finally, like when she's talking to her and everything like that, basically kind of like Karening off on her and telling her get over it and all of that kind of thing. I feel like what we're watching is Allison struggling to find the answer to kind of like solve her family, to kind of like she doesn't know, or maybe has never witnessed a full breakdown of her grandmother. So what the get over it tells me is that she's experienced sympathy up until now and tried to make some kind of connection with her, but ultimately the priority up until that point has been bring the family together, get it so my mother can invite you to come over and be part of like my graduation thing, so we can just be like a family and just do it the way families do. Mm-hmm. And then when she finally watches, so that's where that comes from. It's almost like she's speaking in Karen's voice at that particular moment, because it's easier. It's easier to detach and tell somebody to get over something than it is to be patient with them, or really ask them not, why can't you get over it, but ask them, what is it you can't get over, you know? And I feel like when Laurie finally meets them at the little dinner, whatever, it's not a graduation dinner, but whatever it is.
She like got a valedictorian.
Yeah, she got like a
something.
thing,
Yeah,
and because
Got a
Laurie
ribbon.
was that in her class and everything like that. Yeah, she got a thing. So they're celebrating that. So when they're all celebrating that, and Laurie comes to like the dinner and completely crumbles and everything like that, and it's perceived by Karen and Karen's husband, whose name I still don't remember. Is it Ray? Ray.
Yeah.
Karen and Ray, because Ray's right there, just kind of like, all right, people, now come on, time out, you know, like that very just detached, just controlling energy that is completely checked out with what's going on.
My penis. You know?
Favorite line of the movie. No. But the fact that like they're going back to that voice that we just heard Allison like at the football field or whatever talking in, and now Allison is confronted with the very real effect of the trauma on her grandmother, and she being the only one to feel this affinity for her grandmother's situation, follows her out, decides to follow her outside the restaurant and just hold her and just let her cry, and is still like hasn't drawn a complete conclusion. She's still piecing things together. She is literally growing from like a child who has been kind of like a pawn in this whole family threshold to a player in it. As you grow older within your family, you start to develop your own sense of like, where are my loyalties, and where do I feel safe, who do I want to include in my life because they enrich my life, and who do I want to include in my life I'm going very, very deep here, sorry. Who do I want to include in my life just to kind of like keep tabs on them, and just kind of, like, here, happy birthday, here's your card, whatever. That kind of, and who don't I need to keep, in touch with, that kind of thing. And I feel like that's the point of life where Allison is, and because of all those reasons, I feel like it feels to me very authentic. And granted, I don't know if David Gordon Green had all of that in mind when he put this together, but I can feel from the performances and from just like the way it's ordered, that's what I get from it. And that's, at the end of the day, that's all that really matters.
I definitely feel like Allison has a very good entry point into the movie. I agree with you there. I think, like between all three of the generations of Strode, I think that Allison is the most accessible character of this cast in terms of like whose movie we're looking at. But of course, this is 2018. This is a time where, we can't focus on one story. We have to throw in as many bells and whistles as possible. So we have to show everyone's story. And that's why I feel that, like, to me, Laurie's story is not a successful one, because we're only really seeing it from everyone else's perspective. We're never seeing it really from hers. The movie starts off not even through, like, we're introduced through the fucking podcasters, where, first we get this scene of them, like, oh, my friend at the district attorney's office let me have this mask. And then, title card segueing into them driving to meet Laurie. And it creates this disconnect with, like, the audience and Laurie, because we're not seeing her. Like, the first time we see her is the back of her head, and like all these shots of like locks and everything. And it's just, I know, he's trying to be fancy with, doing all these shots and like showing us like, oh yeah, she's barricaded in this fortress. But it's just like, I'm not seeing Laurie. I'm just seeing like the kind of, not even the mask she's wearing, because she's not wearing a mask, but I guess like the guard that she has up. And the first shot that we actually do see of her is so words very difficult for me right now, but it's just like she's dragging the chair out from the kitchen to sit there, and she's just like, okay. And it just like, this is such a weak entry for this character. Like, there's the deleted scene, and I know you hate this because we've talked about this before too, that is on the Blu-ray, of just the kind of the extended scene of her doing her thing on her compound, like shooting at the mannequins and cleaning her guns. This was the original opening shot, I guess, after the title card. It just kind of showed everything that she was doing. They kind of shortened this and moved it after the conversation that she had with Allison. But in this shot, she's kind of, we're seeing her go about her routine. We're seeing like where she is in life right now. So this goes back to the whole theory of like show, don't tell. And she does this thing, and I know this is where you fell off of it or whatever, but she's cleaning a gun, and then she sticks it in her mouth. And in the background, we can actually see that the shape, it's like in her imagination, he's standing there watching her. And in that moment, like, the way that I interpret that, I don't think that has suicidal thoughts or tendencies or anything. I see that of more of just like her kind of her willingness to like commit to this life that she's created for herself, and just like the destruction of it, just being like, you know what, I can put this gun in my mouth, because it's almost like standing on the ledge of a cliff and not actually falling off of it, but just being like, I can get this close to death and be okay with it, because everything, my life's work is this important that, I can sacrifice myself for it, and that'll be fine. So I don't think that she's suicidal in that moment, but I see her as being like, look, I'm this close, I could just pull the trigger and I'll be gone now, sort of thing. And to me, like, that, the way that I interpret that just showed, like, that tells us so much more about this character. And at least it doesn't really fill us in on a lot of the information and the exposition, which, we don't really need. We get that when the podcasters come in and they're just like, oh yeah, like social services took your daughter away, and you've been married 2 times or whatever. But like it's more so just seeing psychologically where she's at, and that to me works so much better. And that's why I feel like everything that they left in the movie and everything that they excised is just like, that's where I feel like they started making mistakes, you know, when it came to the final cut.
So then it's just a matter of style, because I actually, if you haven't guessed yet, I do prefer the way she enters the movie in the theatrical version, or just in the version that
mundane. That's what I wanted to say. It's a very mundane introduction.
I don't feel
her.
that way.
I
see. What I feel, the way I feel about like the beginning that as you described it, because I remember it. I haven't thought about it in a minute, but I remember watching it. I remember what I didn't like about it was the way you criticized like the locks of the door being like this gimmickry and this kind of like, ooh, I'm like, look how shut in she is. I got this like just kind of like a director who's just kind of like, I can't put it any other way, who's just like whipping it out and just going like, yeah, look what I did. Look, your final girl, she's like sticking a gun in her mouth. I because I didn't understand where it was coming from, because it didn't feel like it didn't feel connected to anything. It didn't even like make a big question mark manifest over my head. Like, what? Where is she? How is she? Why is she doing that? How does she feel? Or anything. It wasn't interesting. It just kind of felt like somebody trying to impress and somebody trying to do something shocking to rock the audience or something like that. I don't know.
I don't think that it's a great scene, but I think that it works much better than the way that they eventually arranged it in the movie.
Well, see, what I like about the thing that I like most about her introduction in the movie, aside from it's really just kind of giving me Jamie Lee Curtis front and center, and just almost even just the actor nature of it, the fact that she is basically just kind of like pulling up a chair the way you would in an audition or in a screen test, and she's just kind of sitting there and doing the work, and the camera's capturing it for the most part. In addition to all of that, I'm watching, because she's not just tough and puffed up. She's walking a line in that scene when they start to ask her about like having Karen like taken away and asking her if she ever got custody back again, and she's like just like long drawn out chord, like the tension is palpable like in her face and then on the screen, and even just like kind of the world weary expression on her face as she approaches the door, and as they're telling her about like Michael Myers about being transferred and everything like that, in the way they're like trying to just kind of like still keep this interview going, and she is over it. But I get to see how tired she is of people being fascinated by him, because that's another thing that I get from like, I don't know, just the fact that people don't seem to get what she went through. Like they're telling they're making up stories about it. They're minimizing it, talking about how bad it was. It wasn't really compared to things that happen today. Nobody is really interested in Laurie's story in this movie until Allison takes an interest. And I love that. And I also love the fact, talking about like, I get a version of Laurie in that, and I love it juxtaposed against the Laurie I get when she's talking, the way it opens in the scene with Allison over on the field, when she's talking about what she wants her to do with the money, and she's got this freedom about her. She's got this, and she's not talking like the Laurie of the first movie. She's just like, no, don't, no.
She's like, who cares?
Go to Mexico. Yeah, right? Do something. You gotta grab life while you can. And she's speaking from a point of view of like, do what I couldn't. When I was your age, for every reason,
where was that throughout the whole movie? That's what I wanted. I wanted that character.
Oh, I mean, there were other things going on.
There are other things. There are other things going on, but it was so weighed down by everything else. Like because here's the thing, it's because we haven't even fucking brought up Dr. Sartain yet. And this movie is, like, the plot of this movie is predicated on so many things happening that are out of Laurie's control, and that's what irks me. And what I would have preferred, and I met with disagreement with this idea, is that Laurie should have been the one to cause the bus to crash. And that, to me, that would make sense, because Laurie in this movie is so far gone. Like, she's like, you know, she's at a place in her life where just like the one shred of humanity that she has left is literally her granddaughter. I feel like the connection to that family is so tenuous at this point that I could see her, if she feels that like the only way she can overcome what she's going through would be to, she knows that, okay, this is when the bus is scheduled to take him to another prison. She's going to go after him, and she's going to cause the bus to crash for the greater good, to unleash this animal into the wild so she can hunt them and show everybody, to vindicate herself after 40 years of people being like, what's your problem? Get over it. For her to do that, so almost in a way that like it's to self-sabotage, or you just like create this situation, like almost like make like her a villain in this case, of just trying to prove to everybody, and to have her do this. I feel at this point she's so far gone that would have been the most interesting way or route to take with that character, that it to me that's so much more interesting than like, oh well, Dr. Sartain caused the bus to crash, or what. It's very vague. I don't even know how they explain it. But for him to do that, and then later on in the movie, quite literally bring Michael to her, when there's no there was no way that he was going to go there, and it annoys me. It frustrates me so much, because the entire movie, Laurie is going off on this tirade, being like, he's coming here, and you know, these are things that are addressed in the sequel. You will talk about that when we do, but it's so frustrating that like, because of things outside of her control, she is like, her mania is validated because of like shit that other people are doing, that I just it's very lazy, the screenplay, to have all of that happen and not even really address it in this movie. And even the way that they do address it later, it doesn't feel like there wasn't really a clear direction. It was sort of like, oh well, we need to answer to that now, but without actually having it be relevant to where we're going next, because I don't even think that they know which direction they're going with this trilogy.
Yeah, well, I mean, because I know they'd moved into this hoping that this movie was going to be a huge hit that would warrant sequels and everything like that, and maybe I believe there might have been a vague idea of like what could have happened if they had the budget, and you know, if they had access to this person and that person and everything like that. And who knows what changed between speculatory movie and actual movie, probably a lot. But to address what you were just talking about in terms of like the sloppy I guess the sloppy carriage that the movie has the characters travel through, to kind of like make the events happen. I do agree with you there. I feel that more and more every time I watch the movie. Again, it isn't the deal breaker for me that it is for you, but for me, it's more like that's when it becomes one of those movies that I enjoy watching, because I enjoy more and more doing the work in my head as as a screenwriter in my head, just wondering, well, what would I have done? What would have been more interesting? And what I arrived at this particular screening was, I think I would have preferred, I don't know if I want Laurie crashing or need Laurie crashing the bus, because then any lives that are lost after he escapes that bus, that's on Laurie as well as it is him, and I don't need that in my life. But what I would like is for her to at least follow him, to like monitor, to just kind of like keep a close watch and tail him to make sure he makes it into that facility. And I don't know what happens. Maybe she does have the breakdown she has, but just a little bit later. And maybe she does, maybe, we could move more into a zone like that where she has to like go be with her family and all like that. But what I want is for him to break free, or even for him to make it successfully, and for her to feel like, God, everything I've been waiting for, and now he's there, he's going to be there forever. Now what is my whole life? Maybe the breakdown comes from that. And then go to the family, have the breakdown, and then we find out he's broken out. lives are being lost, and that because I feel like there was a huge opportunity missed. It's like they came up to the line and they stepped on it, but I wish they would have crossed it with that mirror scene that I discussed with Julian's home and everything like that. That could have been, he's out, he's killing, she's following the trail, or maybe coming from the other opposite end of Haddonfield, like to meet him. And just when he's about to kill someone, she calls out his name, and like maybe they're standing across a street from each other or something like that. And he looks up and does one of these, you know, just kind of like, is that, you know? And maybe, I don't know what I would have had her say. This would have been like required some like really, you know, like introspective, like what does one say at this point? And it better not be, do you even remember me, Michael? You know, it better not be anything like,
Sally,
what was I just...
yeah,
I don't need a
22.
Sally Hardesty in the latest TCM movie. I don't need it in my life. So that, don't write that, but have something...
Takes out a photo of Linda,
right?
Annie, and Bob.
Don't you even remember them? Say their names. Say their names, Michael. And he's just going, what? What is this bitch? But I would rather...
And then just gets up and walks past her. You know?
And she lets him.
Yeah.
She just lets him walk away. No, I don't want that movie. We have that movie in my beloved TCM franchise, and I don't want it. Anyway, but something that like a showstopper moment, that's just like a confrontation at a distance from the two of them, just so she can make him chase her to her little compound. And so that can make more sense, because that's another thing there's so much sitting and waiting.
Say, like, that's what I love about H2O, because that moment of her getting the axe and just walking up the drive and screaming out, Michael, you know, it's like that's like the cat and mouse of it all, that I would just like, you know, come and get me, you know, like, you know, I'm right here, you know.
I would have loved, obviously, something, not that moment, because that moment already exists, but a moment like that actually
just the drama and the iconography of it, like that's what I feel is missing here.
As opposed to a lock and load and a come on, Michael, that's off screen.
And not to say that like the end, like with the sure, it's suspenseful and everything, but it's like I've seen it once, so every other time that like there's nothing else to it other than it's a gripping scene, but if you've seen it once, you know what's coming. And if there's nothing else in it, like in H2O, where you do get the Michael with the axe, at least there's something else that you can find in it that you're like, oh, I love that moment, or anything like that. Even though like everything that precedes it is like kind of lame and predictable, at least it, you know, it has that thing, you know, that beat that are just like, okay, that's what I remember here. When I'm watching Laurie kind of go through every room, and I know, like, okay, this is the part where I can go check my phone, because I know that she's going to go through, like, 4 or 5 rooms. And then she's got to find Ray's body in the closet, which I still have no idea in what time Michael was able to go back outside, get his body, and then, like, heave it upstairs into the closet.
There was an open window.
and then knowing, like, okay, well, he's behind that mannequin. So now it's just, like, it's a matter of, like, all right, we've got another 50 seconds before he reveals himself. So
I will
just
say, like I screen. Yeah, go on.
No. You go.
No, because I was screening it with my mother, surprisingly, because I needed to screen it after work last night, and it was dark, and she usually doesn't watch horror movies at night, but she wanted to watch this. I'm like, oh, really? Because she likes watching the women of the family band together and, you know, kick his ass in the end and whatever. And I'm like, cool, awesome, glad to have you. So we sat there and watched it, and the first time ever. And I've seen this movie with my mother before, but I was sitting there and I just asked her around the time they were first, like, kind of like opening up the basement, and she's getting Karen down there, and then she's going up and everything like that. And I'm just watching, I'm just like, and then she's getting Karen settled so she can go up and shoot and shit after Ray's gone and everything. And I just turned around and I'm like, Mom, you're about the same age as Jamie Lee Curtis, right? She says, yeah, a little older, but yeah. I said, and I'm about the same age as Judy Greer. I just want you to know, if we were ever in this situation, I would not let you go up those stairs alone. Like, you've trained me my whole life to like be this expert marks person, and I even see the little rifle that I used when I was a child and I carved my initials in. And here you're telling me to just sit tight and stay here safe in the basement. I'm gonna let my like 60, 70 something year old mother go up there with this crazed maniac who we don't know what weapons he has on his person. It's like, no, we're gonna cover each other, because he's gonna get one of us, and when he gets one of us, the other one is gonna shoot the shit out of him. We're gonna take him down. And I'm like, that for the first time I've seen this movie, I don't know how many times at this point. For the first time, I was just kind of like, because it happens twice. She goes back down, she sees Karen, she sits with her, and then she goes back up again. And I'm like, what is happening? Why are you letting your mother go up there and get
I feel that like a lot of like that weird like contradictory stuff with Karen is because they wanted to have the surprise with the gotcha, which I mean, like, big fucking deal, you know? Like, I would have rather seen it play out and been more invested in this character and seen what she was capable of doing, rather than having this one-time surprise that's like, that's not even going to, you know, affect me the same way the next time I see it. But I do want to say the one thing that just irks me so much about that movable island is the fact that they have the remote control for it sitting on the kitchen counter right across from it. And once they open it, they just set it back down there. So it's like, what's to stop whoever's upstairs, whatever the threat is, from just being like, oh, what's this do? And then press it and then open the fucking thing. Not that he even needs it, because he can just like literally push it off of its hinges. But it's just one of those things that, like, I'm just imagining that, you know, when they got the notes for designing the sets, and they're like, well, we got to have monitors and cameras and stuff, and she's just going to have this thing, and they're like, okay, well, how are they going to open it? Oh, well, we'll just have a thing. And they're like, okay, well, where does this go? Oh, I don't know, just put it right there. That's fine. You know, like, they didn't really plan it out, like the logistics of everything and how it's going to work. So
that said, I'm going to go back to something I like about this movie overall. I am a big fan of the kill scenes. And I as I was watching them, I was just kind of like, I don't remember the last time I sat through a contemporary movie and thought these kills are solid. Like, I really appreciate the way they're staged. I appreciate the way you have to kind of pay attention in order to catch, because I know there were people in different audiences that I saw the movie with, because I saw it 3 times in the theater, and there was always somebody who missed something and had to ask someone, like, wait, what was that? You know, like, and like Michael punching down, you know, like in the distance, or the broken jaw, like maybe they were looking at another thing in the script. I don't know, but someone's always just kind of like, wait, what was that? And they're just kind of like, it was a broken jaw. He broke the guy. He pulled out the guy's jaw and everything. Yeah. So everybody's like, I don't know, there's something really wonderfully kind of like interactive about it, and also just something about it that hits, that like kind of brought back the brutality to Michael in a way that didn't feel reminiscent of Rob Zombie's incarnation, which I'm not a fan of. I know there are a lot of people who favor maybe the part 1 version or both versions of Rob Zombie's Michael Myers, but for me, that's always just been uncontrolled chaos and just like kind of like like a brutality that is so incredibly overly saturated that it loses effect. Now you're just pummeling me, and I'm not even feeling it anymore, because you're hitting the same spot and the nerves are dead. There's no nerves left. Whereas with this movie, the 2018 one, my nerves are never shot. I feel, or I either get exhilaration or I get cringe for all the right reasons from the violence that's depicted in this movie. In fact, I wish there were even more. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a few that are off screen, but I mean, like, I think there's like 18 kills altogether. I don't know if that counts. What's his face? The officer who's not dead, but I guess, like, in comparison to something like H2O, where there's only like 6 deaths in that movie, and I think like half of those are off screen anyway. So it's there.
Missed opportunity in a public restroom.
Yeah, I think like the right. I think like the thing, like, when it comes down to it, like H2O versus 2018, I think that H2O has the story, whereas 2018 has the production value, and I think that there's. I don't remember everyone's name, so I just, like, because there's 5 people. I mean, not to say that there's just 5 people, because there's so many people that are involved in making a movie that deserve their dues. But in terms of Halloween 2018, I think that the stars of the show are firstly James Jude Courtney as the Shape / Michael Myers. I like, this movie would not be the same without him. The other 3 people, I guess, well, like John Carpenter score, but also because he did the score with his son Cody, and I forget the other guy's name. And then the other person who this ties into the kills is the makeup and special effects artist who actually plays the one cop. I'm just trying to find his name here. He plays the one cop who's like packed his own lunch, the not banh mi sandwich
the brownie.
guy.
The brownie.
He's the one. He like designed the mask. He did all the effects for the kills and stuff. So
That's why that scene doesn't work, because he's not an actor.
No, I don't think either of them are.
Okay, that's why that scene doesn't work. Okay.
Yeah, like all of those people, they're the MVPs of the movie for me, because this movie is nothing without those kills and the effects. It's nothing without James Jude Courtney's presence and physicality, and it's nothing without the score. Like, if you took the score away, this movie would be much less than for me. Oh, also, I'm just looking at the IMDb cast here, and I wanted to I just wanted to point out, because we forgot to mention this before, like when we did our old podcasts. But the voice of the teacher in that scene where Allison sees Laurie standing out the window, that's PJ Souls.
Oh, right.
Linda from the original. She's the voice of the teacher, which I thought was a nice
Love
touch.
her so much.
Oh, she's great.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, I mean, total fan service all over this movie. And that's the thing, is it never really annoyed me. I remembered it was actually kind of charming to see the trick-or-treat masks from... I actually preferred it when there was only the first movie, now that I know who those little shits are.
I don't think that they were the same. I think that there's just lots of people.
Okay. Well, that's good. I hope not. I hope not, because then I can still enjoy them. I used to get a lot of glee just watching those trick-or-treaters, those trick-or-treat masks being cavorted about on a Halloween night in modern day, USA. But anyway, things like that, and then even just like the little van, the little, kind of like Jesus is God van, and that felt like a pull from Halloween 5. And I can't see the podcasters stop at the gas station without hearing Dr. Loomis in my head just going, "A filling station in flames," even though there's no flames at that filling station. But just little things like that, like wonderful. And even, that's another thing that I like about this movie, is that it brings back my unease that I get about Michael Myers as a presence from the first movie. I don't know if I've ever disclosed this specific detail to you. Maybe I have. I can't watch the first movie, or the second one actually, of Halloween, like the first two, at night, and not check my windows before I go to bed that night. Like, I need to make sure they're closed and sealed. I have to make sure there's no shadows on my fence or anything like that. I get really uncomfortable with a presence around my house, the idea of a presence around my house, when I see OG Michael Myers, or even OG sequel Michael Myers. And this movie I realized it, and I've always felt it, but for the first time I articulated it to myself. It's when he's in the candy store sequence, like, I mean, on the street, and just, who's going to die first? And he goes to the woman's window, the woman who's on the phone, who pulls the blinds and everything, and he starts to walk along the side of the house, and we just see the shadow of the shape on that fence alongside that floodlight. And there's something about just like the pedestrian nature of it, not just because he's walking, but because he's not walking with any sense of urgency. He's not trying to hide either. He's just gonna go get the job done. He's gonna try the back door. He's gonna find a way in. He's gonna kill this person. And even just talking about it, I'm sitting in my house, it's nighttime, and I'm like, I need to check the windows before I go to sleep. It brings out, it's not like I'm under my covers shivering nightmare kind of scary, but it is check the locks, make sure you're safe, because you don't want somebody invading your space kind of thing. It's and that enough is, I think, a boon to the filmmaking around the shape as a presence in this movie, because there are a lot of sequels that I don't feel that.
They got the shape right. If I can credit, and again, like I think a lot of this falls on James Jude Courtney and The Mask, but also, I will pay credit to where credit is due. David Gordon Green did direct the James Jude Courtney to emulate that same presence and physicality that we did see in the first two movies. I'd say like the sequel, the second one, he's a lot more mechanical, and I always attributed that to the fact that he was shot 6 times, and it kind of like it slowed him down, or he malfunctioned a little, and he was a a lot more robotic. But it's still like I agree with you. I mean, I don't check my windows, but I maybe I should now that I've said this out loud too. But there's definitely, once you get into Halloween 4 and 5 and so on, it's so different. I mean, even H2O. Like, if I'm gonna give H2O like a huge like X or F, it's the fact that Michael Myers in that movie, I mean, not Mask notwithstanding, but just the physicality of that. I know that the actor who played him said that he based his performance on a big cat, and that's how he played it, as though he was moving around like a panther. Maybe they needed to get an anaconda in there, that would have been how they take him out.
Oh God!
But
I mean, every movie has their weaknesses and their strengths, but among this one, that was a huge strength for me. I felt like, sure. Oh my God, Michael Myers! I don't have to like imagine what if Michael Myers was really on the screen right now. I felt like I got Michael Myers, and I appreciate that. I also, there's little things. Strangely enough, like I won't go into it, but I did watch the extended cut of Halloween Kills somewhat recently, because I got my Blu-ray way late, and I didn't have that fun a time. And then I'm watching this movie kind of like a month out from seeing that for the first time, and I started to realize another thing that I actually can appreciate about Halloween 2018 now. I do like the connective tissue between this movie and what's coming next, now that I know what's coming next. Like, there are, just in terms of faces that are going to become more relevant, for better or worse, in the sequel. But I didn't even realize in the opening sequence that prisoner with the white umbrella is the little old man who figures very, very prominently in A Case of Mistaken Identity in the next movie. And I was just like, oh my God, there he is. Like, I know his face now. And I mean, there are a bunch of other characters who kind of like walk through this movie and then end up in the sequel, but that was one that I caught. And then the other ones who I didn't catch so quickly, like my first screening, let's say. I don't know. I can appreciate the uniformity of of Haddonfield. That's another thing. I mean, it doesn't have that John Carpenter uniformity that we've talked about with the original trilogy. Having, even though Season of the Witch is not part of the continuity, There's something about the look and feel of, the way the screen is occupied and everything like that. We've talked about that. But it doesn't have that, but I do feel like its own connectivity to the original. I don't question. I feel like, okay, well, if you're going to make a movie about that being, like something that actually happened, and what would it look like today? What would that town look like? What would those people look like? It all kind of gels for me. And I mean, this is very, very broad. This is not about anything in specific, in any kind of specific nature. It's just about a feeling I get as I watch the movie. And overall, I won't even call them nitpicks. I'll call them valid criticisms. But all my criticisms aside, this is a pleasant sit for me for the most part. I'd say for the majority of the time I spend watching this movie, I'm enjoying myself, and that's, I don't know.
That's
good. My experience.
Yeah, I'm happy for you. I'm so happy for you.
If I could give my lenses to you, and have you watch
like
this
that's
movie,
completely
maybe.
fair. Like I wanna watch this movie the way that the people who really love it see it. I want to understand it. I want to see that, and because I think that there is greatness in this movie. We just talked about it, and it's almost like I wish that those things like that, Michael Myers and all that, could just be put into a better story. And not to say, a story like Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers is a better story, because that's a huge fucking mess. But that's a ride for me. We talked previously about movies that feel like a carnival ride or things like that. And I wouldn't specifically say that that's like a carnival ride, but it's still fun. I still like go and sit that, and I see that, and I'm like, look how ridiculous this is. Like I'm having a good time at Halloween 5 and all that. Whereas this, it's just like, again, it comes back to like the being grounded in reality. I think that if you are going to commit to being grounded in reality, then commit to that. If you're going to be committed to going off the rails, commit to that. But you can't do both. You can't please everybody, because when you try to please everybody, you're going to have people that are not pleased. And unfortunately, I fall under that category. And let's segue this into Blumhouse, Jason Blum, and David Gordon Green here, because the thing is, like, and I guess Danny McBride as well, because the script was written by both Danny McBride and David Gordon Green, and directed by David Gordon Green. And this, I don't even think I've seen a movie directed by David Gordon Green before. All I know is that this was his first foray into horror. So he had never done a horror movie before. And I don't think that he is not a capable director by any means, but, I watch this movie and I just see like all these decisions that are made, and it just looks to me like either he doesn't have the confidence to make the decisions or stick to his guns or whatever. Like, who knows what influence Jason Blum has on this too, because we all know Jason Blum's influence and how he affects movies in his own way. But even here, there are certain things where I feel like I'm watching what David Gordon Green is doing, and my thought process is, sometimes less is more, but also sometimes more is more. And it's like he doesn't know when to implement both. Like, for example, I think like the best example of this is this scene where Allison meets the Shape for the first time when she discovers Oscar impaled on the fence, and we get that beautiful John Carpenter score. And that's the moment in the movie, and especially like when I saw it for the first time, and even when I watch it on like rewatches like I did last night, I get to that point and I'm just like, here we go. Now we're in it. Like this is where things are getting intense. And that moment lasts for like 20 or 30 seconds until she runs up to the house and they turn on the light. I'm just like, what are you doing? What, like, whose decision was this? Why are you deciding to cut to abbreviate something, and there's a very similar thing in the next movie, and we'll talk about that when we do that pod. But that's an example where it's just like, no, this is where more would be more, and then maybe for less is more. David Gordon Green, I feel like he does so much with the camera. That's, obviously there's cinematographers involved in all that, but it's just like, I watch certain scenes and all I can think is like, you don't need to be doing these like swoops and zooms and quick shots and I think especially this is really highlighted in the opening, when we go meet Michael at Smith's Grove in the facility. And I actually really liked the idea of that scene. I really enjoy kind of like the chessboard, metaphorical like imagery of it all, and like just all of these pawns in their squares, and there's Michael. There's Michael in the middle. Like I think that was so well done. But then it's like it's interrupted with this thing where like we have to like do these dramatic zooms and swoops, and then here's all these other patients and we have to do these quick cuts to them, and it's like the time that this shot is the most effective when it's just kind of lingering on the back of Michael's head, and we're just we're listening to everything that's going on, but we're not quite seeing his face, but we're just seeing him. And there's so many instances in this movie, like once I noticed that and I watch the rest of it and I get so distracted by the need to like move around so quickly. Like sometimes all you have to do is like understand when you can just sit with something, and when like something is important and we just need to like to focus on that. And maybe for the types of movies that David Gordon Green has done in the past, like I think he's done like action movies. I don't really know. I have
the only title of his, I just looked, and the only title of his that I recognize that I've actually seen is Pineapple Express. So
yeah, and I haven't
saw
seen
that
it
once.
Yeah. I have no interest in seeing a David Gordon Green movie at this point, but maybe stuff like that worked for those movies, but it's just like know your genre, and just in terms of like Jason Blum. Yeah.
Yeah. Go on.
No.
Yeah. Because you got a lot to say about Jason Blum.
Well, no, I want to hear what you had to say.
Okay, just in terms of like know your genre, because that's another thing is I feel like maybe that I also wonder if sometimes the problem is thinking because you're in a genre that you have to do something more than filmmaking, like you have to. And I don't think he's an inadequate filmmaker. Like I've already, described several moments that absolutely work for me on screen that I know were directed by him and crafted, like whether on the page or in the soundstage or on location, wherever he is, like, or in the editing room. Like there was success in this movie in specific points, but there was also moments that I've described where I'm just kind of like, didn't need this. A lot of big brouhaha about nothing. You didn't. Or this could have easily led to something else, and you could have like. And,
well, like the Allison mannequin scene, for example.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like what you're describing in the opening, again, like there are some things that I think are more triggering for you than they are for me in terms of like, oh, that annoys me, like because I have them. Myself, certainly. There are things that when I see them on screen, gimmicks, devices, what have you, things that filmmakers lean on, that when they happen, I'm like, oh, here we go. But with the opening, all I get from like what you're describing, like being out in the yard and the ponds, and I never thought about the ponds. That's very interesting. But in terms of the isolation, like I just think about like the safety as a precaution, and the fact that the podcaster, the male podcaster Aaron, is being a dumbass first of all by getting so close to the line, holding the mask, but it begins something for me that I know we'll delve into more so with the sequel to this movie, the first sequel. But what all it does for me with this movie is it sets up this wonderful kind of like, what are we watching going on? Because some people are going to watch that mask being pulled out and the podcaster saying like, you can feel it, can't you, and all that stuff, and everybody kind of going, ah, you know, and having whatever reaction they have in the yard to it, as, oh my goodness, the evil has been, you know, like unlocked, and it's been manifest, and it's so much so that like these people who are living on another frequency can feel it and hear it, and it's coursing through them, and that's what's happening. Or you're a person who's watching that scene and you're going like, that man is causing a ruckus. He's making a lot of noise. He's being very reckless, trying to trigger this patient. And instead of triggering the one he wants, he's triggering all the other ones. And they're going to have a hard time calming all those men. I think they're all just men in that yard. All those men in that yard down and getting them, you know, like for whatever it is that the next event of the day is. Like some people are going to look at it much more practically. And like it isn't about unleashing evil or anything like that, or about even energy. It's just about like, God damn it, someone set off all of these people who are in a precarious enough situation mentally and emotionally, and now he's just kind of like fucked the whole thing up. There was a house of cards, it was standing, and he just went, and now it's all fallen to shit. Fuck him. And I kind of appreciate the duality with which you can watch something happening, and the fact that it's one of the first things that we see happen in the movie sets me up. But then, of course, a nitpick disappointment for me that follows is, why did the pumpkin have to be CGI? You can't just do like what do they call it, like time-lapse photography of an actual jack-o'-lantern slowly, just like the fire's going to go out eventually, and maybe that's what they were worried about. But you could just do the candle, like the inside of the pumpkin, CGI, do that. But why does the whole thing, then I see that and I'm like, oh, it looks fake. It's a good idea, like the resurrection of it all and everything, but dude.
Well, this is the first time I watched it in 4K, and I think like I definitely, like, it was the worst that pumpkin like title opening looked. So I don't know. I think it was just all about like the connective tissue. It's just like, you know, the first two movies had that, or the first one in particular, you know, had the pumpkin. So now it's like the pumpkin is it's coming back. You know, it's
of course.
Like it's a good idea, but I mean, if I had to rank all of the Halloween opening like titles things, gosh, you know, how would I even do that?
Ooh.
I can't even remember all of them.
I mean,
I think, okay, I know the ones that I don't like. I think that the Halloween 5 one is kind of basic. That's just the one where you hear like that.
Oh, I like it.
Really?
It's playful. Yeah, I enjoy it. But I enjoy Halloween 5, so you know.
No, I mean, I love Halloween 5, but that one is just like, to me, that falls a little lower. I think the one in 6, 6, wasn't it just like, it was just... I know they had the title like zoom in and it was like boom.
That's right.
Like, and then just
like right after
the credits over Paul Rudd talking and stuff. So
yeah.
So that's basic.
Not memorable. Yeah, very basic, not memorable.
I do like the H2O one because I like that rendition of the theme, and I thought it was nice to hear the not Donald Pleasance, or at least you know, someone who could do Donald Pleasance's voice competently. Actually, no, they didn't. Now that I'm thinking about it, it didn't sound like Donald Pleasance at all. What am I talking about? But anyway, it was the same. It was the speech, and it was just like, you know, with all the things on the wall. I liked that one. The Resurrection was just bullshit. It was like, when you get to the end of the tunnel, there's a whatever the fucking that.
Right.
Yeah, that sucked.
No,
I don't even remember the Rob Zombie ones, to be completely honest.
Don't either. Did they even have title cards, or did it just happen for the first movie? It happened at the end, didn't it? Or no, for both of them it happened at the end, didn't it?
I'm not sure.
Did we just get a title card at the end? I don't think they got title cards for either one of those movies.
Yeah, you might be right. Yeah, and then I think that like probably like the first 4. Because the first 2 are like, you know, original with the I love the one with the skull in the sequel. The third one is the computerized one. Love the score. Yeah, and then the fourth one we get the very like moody atmospheric like farmlands around Haddonfield. That's really good. So I think that Yeah, I think those are the best. And then I like the H2O one.
Okay.
I don't, and then I think everything else. I don't know where I would put it, but
I think I'm on board with you with everything except for 5. I really I remember the first
maybe
time it happened. I remember it didn't seem terribly like it was ingenuity or anything like that at work, but it did feel like, oh, okay, I get it, you know. And then the whole movie, I did that. I was just kind of like, what? Oh, I get it.
Anyway, this was such a random tangent. It's just like the opening title.
It's fine.
Yeah,
but that is the opening title of this one. It's kind of like the movie. It's like, I really like that idea. I don't know about the execution. Yeah, I don't know about And then there are other things that manifest, and then there are.
I do want to. Okay, well, on Letterboxd, I did rate this 3 stars out of 5, and I rated this a while ago. And I, sometimes I change my rating, and I watched it again last night. I'm just like, yeah, three stars seems accurate to me. So I don't, this is not terrible. I think that the movies from, I'll just say right now, like, I think the first 3, the John Carpenter 3, like, those are the best. People who, have their grievances with Season of the Witch because it's not Michael, whatever, that's you're
really John Carpenter.
You're entitled to that, but it is John Carpenter. He just didn't want his name all over it, but he basically did most of the work. Same with Halloween 2, arguably, because we know like Rick Rosenthal also directed Halloween Resurrection, and we know that like, oh no, like everything that was good about Halloween 2 was probably.
It was a very. There's a lot of things. I mean, talking about the people who you interact with, with whom you're making the movie, and what's motivating them, even the studio with whom you're working and everything. It's all. I take all of that into account as well. But but with this one, I was just gonna say, like, if I can finish my thought, is that after the first 3, I think that everything after that, or just like everything from like 4 to 7, like 4 to H2O, and then these new ones, like they're all very flawed movies. They all have like none of it is perfect. Like, I love this franchise, but there's a lot of crap in here. Oh yeah, there's a lot of garbage in here, and it's just a matter of like, and a lot of it is just like on the same level for me. It's just like what garbage is like, do I treasure more? That's kind of how I feel about everything after the 3rd movie. Which garbage is my garbage?
Yeah, exactly.
I have that feeling about a lot of movies where it's just like, I know it's garbage, but it's my garbage. Exactly. I know it's garbage. How do you know it's garbage? Yeah. Did you watch it for over 40 years? I don't think so. Yeah. But because even the notes that I'm giving with this one in particular, I knew like after I saw it, there were a lot of people having a lot of, we live in the age of the internet, so how people feel, or the majority, or even just maybe the loudest minority, I don't know. Yeah. But you get a sense of like what the buzz is surrounding something very early on. And with this one, the dissatisfied parties, who did seem to be the loudest for a while, and even the kind of party, the ones who were on the fence, who were like, I don't know, I did hear a lot of complaints about Sartain, I remember, again, it was one of those cases where I'm like, oh, that really bothered people? I thought it was kind of dumb, but I was also like, oh, that hasn't been done before. Yeah. Somebody else is wearing the mask. And he was taken out almost immediately, so all right, it's over, good. It's like, again, like anything that is kind of like difficult to digest, it's like the movie gives you an antacid so you can digest it more quickly. I don't feel like there's a whole hell of a lot that I'm sitting there just checking. I don't have a watch, but I'm checking my phone, going, okay, how much longer do I have to sit here and endure this? I will say, pacing wise also, because we talk about that from time to time with these movies. I like the way it chugs along. It doesn't kind of like abandon me into the muck and the mire for very long. It's more like being when you're a very, very small child and you're being led through the mall with your mother, and for one moment she lets go of your hand, and then you don't know where she is, and strangers are passing over. You're like, wait, what? And then your mom's just like, hey, I'm over here. Oh, okay, there's my mother. That's what this movie is like.
I don't know.
For me.
Yeah. If there's other things I could say, because like I think like the best parts of this movie for me are like, funny enough, anytime that they are emulating John Carpenter. That whole sequence of the tracking shot, which as far as I'm concerned is like the best part of the movie. It's just John Carpenter. Like it's basically like, do this, like copy someone's homework, but then put your name on it. And like it looked great. He did a good job of it, but it's like at the same time, it's like, I know your style and this is not your style. And it's nice that you put that in there, but it's like, but the fact that I walk out of that movie and just being like, well, that just makes me want more of that and less of what you have to do, like offer originally. And, you know, if we could talk about Blumhouse for a second here and just, because I think, you know, and we've mentioned this before, you know, one of the things that, you know, also kind of turned me off of this movie is the fact that, and, you know, we still see that, is the marketing and how there was, you know, they reveal so many big moments in the trailer. Because I think that the closet scene, for instance, that was like, that did not need to be there. And I think that was one of like the very, like that was like at the end of the trailer, you know, after they've already shown everything. And like one last like jump, because Jason Blum has this mentality that like people don't remember what they see in the trailer. And it's just like, what fucking year are you living in? You know, of the where HD video is on the internet and we can pause and go frame by frame and look at everything. Like don't be ridiculous. And the thing is, with that scene, like I can see even like David Gordon Green like making an attempt to build suspense, because in that moment, I, you know, and I noticed this on the most recent rewatches, that you have Dave out in the garage and he's like, oh wow, and we don't see what he's seeing yet, and then we see it's the motorcycle and he's doing that, but it's just like we have no idea where Michael is, and that scene would have worked very effectively except for the fact that it was already revealed in the trailer. And, you know, me being, you know, the hopeful person that I am, thinking like, well, that was a fake scene that they filmed for the trailer, and Michael is actually outside in the garage and no one's in the closet. And then when I saw that, it was just so disappointing, because it's just like, well, you know, you basically just threw out 2 minutes of your movie for like a 2-second clip in a trailer. And
you use this example often.
I think it's the best example for of anything.
I mean, it definitely is for you, for what it does to you. For me personally, that's not my experience, because I remember the first three. I mean, it didn't really have a huge effect on me last night, but it. But when I got to see it with a full audience, there were people who either did not see the trailers or who forgot the trailers or whatever. So it worked on them, and then you get to kind of like, again, like that funhouse atmosphere, or that, you know, even, shall we say, universal Halloween Horror Nights kind of like thing, where if something isn't there to scare you, but it scares the person next to you, you can still get a secondhand thrill off of them going, ah, you know, everything like that. And so, or even if you're one of those people who likes to sit way in the back, because I've experienced this joy as well, just watching maybe like a tidal wave of heads just kind of, you know, like all flop back, and just the pandemonium that follows afterwards and everything like that. I got those moments certainly. With the people that I was surrounded with in the movie theater, and even though I knew it was coming, it's still, I was in the moment. I don't know, maybe I'm just the movie's bitch in that.
You usually are
in that regard. I usually am. Well, because I mean, this is the thing. Also, like, and this is not a comment about you, because I don't believe this about you, but there are people who I've heard, particularly like at the release of this movie, online panel discussions and reviews, and everybody had an opinion about it, and everybody was screaming it from, you know, the rooftops, and I didn't have the fatigue I have now with hearing opinions of people I don't know who I can't clap back, or not even clap back, but just share. Like I'm all for sharing opinions if we can share them. Sitting there and being subjected. I mean, I commend anybody who's still listening who disagrees with either of us, because good for you. Because it's hard for me. It's hard for me to just kind of sit there and listen to somebody go on about their opinion about something without offering any kind of dimension or any other kind of perspective on it.
Right.
Because then it's not really examining it. I feel it's just kind of like thumbs upping or thumbs downing, and life is more replete with detail. It's too important to just kind of go, yeah, whatever. But anyway, when people were discussing this movie, there were a lot of people who were, I felt, just kind of like crossing their arms and just kind of going like, I mean, I'm glad it's there, but whatever. And I was just kind of like, are you like beyond being able to enjoy just sitting in a movie where a man in a white mask is putting a knife in people? And again, I sound like those people who were really, really happy with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre requel that we just got, which I was not. But I mean, I still could enjoy things about it. We had a whole discussion about it. But at the end of the day, I really do want. I'm a movie lover. Yeah. I'm not just a movie goer. I'm a movie lover. I want to sit there and I want to I don't want to eat, because I don't really eat popcorn because it makes too much noise. But I want to eat figurative popcorn. I want the movie to have me going, oh, I'm on your side, like from the beginning. But if you start to let me down, and if you're the kind of mother who's going to release my hand and just leave me to be lost in a mall, well then fuck you, movie. I'm mixing all my metaphors.
Well, you are, but I was going to say, like, that's the thing, like, we share opinions on movies sometimes we differ, but the thing is, like, nobody in this world is going to have the exact same opinion on every single movie. There are 12 entries in this franchise, soon to be 13, and if you do the math, if you like put the parameters in and look at like all the different sort of outcomes of a ranking that you could have, that's like in the millions. That's in the, like, someone might have like 1, 5, 3, 2, 7, 8, like, and then another might have like 10, 2, 3, it's like nobody's opinion is going to be exactly alike. And it's just that understanding that, don't be that shitty person who thinks like, well, this is the only opinion that counts, and then you meet someone else and they have that same opinion and you're like, yeah, that's great, but then they're like, but what did you think about Scream 3? Oh, I hated it. What? Like you're never gonna meet someone who you're 100% in sync with, and if you do, you might just murder them.
Run.
I don't know. Yeah.
Just run. That's creepy as fuck. That's not what it's about.
That is like, and here I am just referencing our past podcast. That's like single white female behavior. Just like, that's my favorite too.
But run.
I was gonna say, because I saw this 3 times in the theater. The first time I saw it, like opening the Thursday preview night before. Saw with some friends, and I enjoyed it. Like, as my first experience, I'm like, that's good. And then this came out around this time of my birthday, so on my birthday I'm like, I'm gonna go see it again. I'm just gonna go see it alone by myself. And I watched it, and I just remember it being a little bit more difficult to get through. Like, I did find that there were lulls for me, and there were certain things like, oh, I wish that doesn't make me feel good, or and then I saw it again with another friend because she wanted to see it and she hadn't seen it yet. I'm like, okay, let's go. And by that time that I saw it, I was just so completely drained of it, and I'm just like, oh, I can't believe I made this promise. I have to sit through this movie again. And I think at that point I realized maybe it's not a great idea to go see movies so many times in the theater. I did see the new Scream, I believe 4 or 5 times. Okay. But and that's where I kind of just like, no, I still really like this. I'm still enjoying it after this many times.
I was too, yeah.
So I feel like
3 times for me, I think.
Yeah, like with this one, I just kind of I realized pretty quickly that it wasn't my Halloween movie. I really did try. Sure. But just like that, the like, oh, this was good, just turned into, oh no, like pretty quickly for me.
Yeah, so. Sometimes revisiting a movie really, really quick after you've just like kind of witnessed it maybe a few nights ago or weeks ago is like getting on your favorite roller coaster again, and that's great. And then sometimes it's like putting that chewed piece of gum that has lost all flavor and that is now tough and, you know, not malleable enough to be pleasurable. And you're just going, oh God, how is it possible for something to taste sweet and fresh and dirty at the same time?
Best analogy one could have come up with for how I feel about this movie.
It's a wadded up piece of gum for you.
The flavor dissipated very quickly.
I see.
Anyway,
okay. Nice.
Is there anything else we can say about this before we mosey along?
There's so much, but let's just mosey.
Okay, let's mosey on to the cherry picker. So, first order of business, we have to figure out a cherry on top. We didn't even really talk about characters that we liked in this. So I'm just going to throw out two potentials, which, because it's just like they kind of go together in tandem. I like them both.
I hope you're going to say who I think you're going to say.
I was going to say Julian and Vicky.
Yeah. Okay, I'm totally cool. I'm down with that. I didn't get to say that.
I wanted so much more of them in this movie because even watching it, I was just like, this feels like a Halloween movie to me. Like we have the friend characters who are really interesting, and I like their banter. I like their dynamic together. I like the fact that this is a movie, like the original was about babysitters. Here we are with this babysitter in 2018. 40 years later, this would be like Annie and Lindsay, or Laurie and Tommy or whatever. So it was just nice, and I liked their relationship. If any of what death in the movie upset me, it was hers, because it was just I was really rooting for that kid and for her to get out of there. When he's like, no, send Dave. I was just like, send Dave.
Yes, you're the voice of the audience at that particular moment, which I think is imperative for a cherry on top.
Yeah.
But also the fact that her selflessness when he runs up the stairs and sees exactly what's going on with the situation with Michael in his room and her, and she's just telling him, run, Julian. Oh, it makes me so sad. Oh my God. Just imagining her just saying, run, Julian, run. And he's running. I'm like, yes, run, Julian. But oh my God, I'm so upset because this is so fucked up that Michael is an asshole. He really is. Because that's another thing that fucking pissed me off. Sorry, I'm getting a little derailed here, but just in terms of in a good way, it pissed me off in a good way. When they go upstairs and they find poor Vicky, under the sheet and everything like that. He didn't just cover her with a sheet like an homage to the first movie and everything like that, and us to kind of wonder, is it Michael? Is it her? Is it, who is it? The fucking jack-o'-lantern with the hearts for eyes is in the fucking aquarium, which means Michael had to go downstairs, kill Dave, take the jack-o'-lantern back up the stairs, and just fucking dunk it next to her, and put her body in, cover the sheet, and just dunk it next to her here's your romantic night. I just thought, what an asshole. So, yeah, I know most people thought the comedic highlight of that exchange between Vicky and Julian when she's just gotten off the phone and he's talking about his nasty ass toenails and everything like that. For me, the highlight is when she tells him she's going to talk to his mom about his browser history, and he has that sweet little, wordless take. I don't even know what to say to that. Yeah. Please don't tell my mom about my browser history.
And just the whole thing of just you're not even the favorite kid that I babysit for. There's 10 more that I like better. And then the scene after her, she's like, I'm just kidding, you're actually my favorite.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a function of the franchise that we had kind of lost sight of for a long time, and I'm glad it was back, and I'm glad that I was as invested as I was for as little time as we spent with them. That's really economical.
Too little. So I don't know which out of the two.
They can't be a twin ship.
No, we've already broken so many rules. We had a dog.
Okay.
I would go for Julian just because he's the he's the comedy there.
Okay,
like
I was gonna.
Well, what are you gonna say?
The case I would have made for Vicky is because she's dead and she can't be the cherry on top in any other movies, because we don't know if Julian's going to be in Halloween Ends or not. But anyway, but I mean, yeah, I think we do have more fun with him. Yeah. I like Vicky a lot. I'm glad she was a contender, but I'm fine with Julian being the cherry on top. Let's say Julian.
Okay. Rules! Fucking rules!
Fucking rules. They exist for a reason.
All right. So, for the cherry picker, last week we asked you who deserves to die the most in Scream 3. Mm-hmm. I nominated Smug Student. You nominated John Milton. And across Patreon, Instagram, and YouTube, the vote was 652 for John Milton versus 128 for Smug Student.
That's still a lot for Smug Student.
No, but that's a lot of votes in general, just all around. A lot of people turned up for this one.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah, thanks for for voting for Eddie's nomination. I was gonna say, I'll read the comments in a second here, but I think it's funny because the week before we did Single White Female, and my nomination was for a character who, very similar to John Milton, I would say is even worse, because we get to see the brunt of the abuse, where with John Milton it's more so just implied,
alluded to.
Yeah. So I think it's funny that people, I would say, people have argued that, people just take my side because I'm me, but it's looking to me like you're the favorite at this point.
Or people vote their conscience and vote their heart.
Well, maybe maybe someone just decided like puppy killing is a greater offense than sexual assault, but then when it's sexual assault versus like just some schmuck in an audience, then that's
that might be it. I mean, and also the thing is, like, I feel like Milton is, I mean, I always remember that Stephen Tobolowsky is in Single White Female and that he does what he does. Yeah. But that's me. But I know I also really remember Lance Henriksen in Scream 3. And even though we don't see any of it in action, I believe, not about Lance Henriksen, but about Milton, I believe every fucking word of it. And
Well, we didn't even mention the fact that we found out that he slept with Angelina. That's how she got the role, because she had that line.
God.
Where she's like,
he's still doing it.
That pig Milton. Yeah.
Yeah, he's still doing it. So gross, gross, man. I mean, the only reason I'm upset when he dies is because Sydney is. That's probably truer than I want it to be.
All right.
But okay.
Okay, there's a lot of comments, but...
I want to hear them.
All right. Davin Hall says, I don't know how anyone is choosing that student over pervert and corrupt Milton. He's actually part of the reason why Roman set up everything. Green Koopa says, Lance knew who it was when he took the role. That's hilarious. Grant Dempsey says, just imagine Scream 6 bucks the series trend, reveals a killer's identity in the opening. An older journalist who has never quite made it big but is on good terms with everyone in his life receives a threatening phone call. Eventually, after the call has gone on a while and the guy is thoroughly frightened for his life, the caller says to finally answer your question and then drops the Roger L. Jackson voice, revealing Gale's "It was worth it." Cue throat cutting. Does that mean that Gale goes after the schmucky smug student? That was a story.
Okay, I guess. Yeah, okay. Wow, what an opening.
Yeah.
I definitely stay for more after that opening. I'd be like, what is happening?
I feel like Gale would probably... Gale would be she would probably hold on to that grudge and be like, that piece of shit. I'm going to get you one day.
Oh, I know you.
Yeah. Or, he'll get a job on her current morning show or whatever. And she'll recognize him and she'll be like, I'm going to make your life miserable.
The only way he would get on her good side if he just said, after all these years, you were right.
Yeah.
You know, like if he's killed and stabbed and not killed and stabbed, but you know what I mean, like just like push people down and like
metaphorically,
metaphorically
throats to get ahead.
Yes, there you go.
Wes Stewart says John Milton is basically Harvey Weinstein, so it's nice to always see his throat slashed in Scream 3. Blue Box 87 says, see, if you hadn't made all those rules up, you could have picked Gail's bangs. Hashtag
That is hilarious.
I think people need to get over the bangs. I don't like.
No, they can't. They can't. It's a sensation. It's a legend now. The bangs in and of themselves are an entity.
Chad Trevorson says, John Milton, without a doubt. Silent Saturn says, in reality, Milton can be the only answer, but Zach makes his case with such a disdain and vitriol. I'm going to go with the smug student. I also like the tradition of nominating complete non-characters as cherry pickers for the Scream films. Thank you.
That's how we started.
That's how it should have been. I was having fun with my nomination. You were going with practicality and
I was voting my conscience and voting my heart.
Yeah, sure. Michael Ryan says Milton. Gail deserved a little rudeness in that scene for assaulting us with her bangs first thing. Her hair is even pulled back to emphasize them. Absolute war crime. I know her bangs have become the joke of the movie, so much like the smug journalist student. I would also say, tell me, Ms. Weathers, was it worth it? Chris Perkins says, John Milton is the true villain of Scream 3. Off with his MFN head, LOL.
Okay.
I mean, see, he might have been the catalyst for. We don't even know if he's the biological father. That's the thing. But it's you can't downplay the fact that Roman is made the conscious decision to go out there and murder everyone. To say that John Milton is the reason for everything happens is very undermining of Sydney's statement to Roman of just saying, like, do you know why you kill people? Because you choose to. So I am not of the opinion. Milton is a piece of shit, but it's not fair to like any person in the world could incite something that might start a chain reaction that could go on and create a catastrophic event somewhere else. Like, we have no,
and he did.
Yeah, we have no idea of like that what we do is what's gonna happen. So
but the things he was doing were pretty heinous, and I don't think he would have been surprised knowing he ruined a few lives. And he justified it.
I don't think they know. He's definitely not surprised, but
he justified it by saying they knew what they were getting themselves into.
Yeah, but I mean, like, if Roman was captured and convicted and tried and all that, and in the court, and his lawyer was just been like, but Milton, like, he started it.
But that's like having to pay for like your own crimes and everything like that. I agree. John Milton did not commit Roman's crimes, but he was the first domino that we know of. Maybe that's what Scream 6. Six Cream is gonna be, or Six Ream.
I think it's just like Scream. I think it's just because there's two exclamations, just like Scream, but then like there's like 6 in there, like because there's the 6 and then.
Oh my god, I like that.
Scream 6.
That's what it's called now. Got 5 cream and Scream 6. Well, it's going to get more and more inventive as we move on. Go on, sorry.
Hamish says, Milton, kind of the reason for every death in the Scream franchise. Without him, Ghostface probably wouldn't have existed. Again, disagree, but agree. Some Spring 41, Harvey Weinstein. I mean, John Milton. Howell puns. Assault versus rudeness isn't really a comparison, huh? This one is kind of a downer, not gonna lie.
Oh.
Story to ruin your day. Meredith Cox says, I totally thought Milton got his throat cut, so Milton is totally the right answer. The true question is who should have been the fourth survivor. I don't think it should have been Kincaid. Jennifer should have lived. She was the best part of the movie. Parker Posey is an icon in that role. What was the line that movie that when she showed up at the end?
When Parker Posey showed up?
Not in Scream 3, and the other one that you were telling me about.
Oh, wait, what was... I don't remember. What was
She's
I
like, cock-a-doodle-doo, or...
Oh, cock-a-doodle-doo, good morning!
Yeah.
In Suburbia, right. I forgot about that.
That should have been...
in your memory.
That should have been her in Scream. It should have been... What it should have been is... Sydney, Mark was never there, but like Gail and Dewey go running into the thing, and then Sydney closes the door, and then it creaks open, and she turns back, and then there's no one there, and then all of a sudden like Parker Posey pops in, and she's got like a bag of like Blockbuster videos and like some coffees. She's like, cock-a-doodle-doo, we're gonna watch a movie.
Oh my god, that would have been great. And that has been actually the main topic of conversation on my Instagram DMs with people who follow us on there.
Yeah.
Everybody, we all wish Jennifer survived, and some of us still want her to. Like, we want her to come back into the franchise.
They did it with Hayden, do it with Parker.
Someone said that, like, if Dewey could survive all of that for that long, like, how come she couldn't survive just, like, a few stabs in wherever she gets... I don't even remember where she gets stabbed in 3. Nobody does. So, you know what? Just bring her back.
I don't even think she got stabbed. There was no stabbing in that movie. Everything was, like, scaled back to...
Right. She just got pushed over a box.
And she said it herself. She's like, you can't kill me. I'm the killer in Stab 3.
Yeah.
Somebody says, definitely John Milton. Taejon C says, between these two, Milton must die. I can see where this is going. VVS Yoni says, who's the smug student journalist who is rude to Gail? Keep up. Have you seen the movie? Green Hair 77, Harvey Weinstein, John Milton. Gotcha. Cody Zombie Wrecker says, I always forget Milton somehow makes it out of the movie alive, which he does not. So if you forgot to remember that, then that was a good instinct to have initially. Thomas Baker says John. And Joker JAK says, Jennifer Jolie, the only character I hate in the entire franchise. So, yeah, wow.
Oh.
No comment. I think we've
Oh my goodness. I'm sorry. I'm just sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
All right. Wow.
Anyway.
So I get...
Yeah, looks like you're on that.
All right. I mean, based on everything that I've said thus far, this might be surprising. But I do have to say, knowing what's coming kind of ruins this character for me, and I just don't... I'm going to choose Dr. Sartain. Because the first time I saw this movie, I remember just that moment of Laurie's recognition when she meets, or when he meets her, finally. And she just says, you're the new Loomis. And there was just this wonderful kind of, in the audience. We were like, oh, we couldn't have Donald Pleasance. She's seeing him the way we're seeing him. He's the new Loomis. Okay, get it. And I don't know, it's just this wonderful moment of identification. So and then the thing happened, everybody got disappointed. I was just mildly kind of like sidelined. But the more I watch the movie now, the more I'm just kind of like, why are you here? He's somebody who, I don't even know if he deserves to die so much as deserves to be excised from the movie. I understand somebody has to look after Michael Myers, but he could have just as easily been, I don't know, there's something about his fascination that I find so much less interesting than Dr. Loomis's quote unquote fascination or obsession, shall we say, with Michael Myers. Like, he devoted his life to the pursuit of Michael. And it seems like this man, Sartain, has devoted his... he's not even interesting enough for me to find words to describe what he does or who he is. He's just, I'm gonna kill him.
I think it's funny that you mentioned that line that Laurie says, "You're the new Loomis," because as far as I'm concerned, Laurie is the new Loomis. She's the obsessive, crazy person who's literally doing all this crazy shit. So I think that she's just projecting when she says that, and she doesn't want to believe that she's that unhinged that like anyone would ever look at her and be like, "You're the new Loomis." That's what I want to see in Halloween Ends. I want to see someone go up to her and just be like, "Oh, you're the new Loomis," and her be like, "No," and we're like, "Yeah."
And then right after she shoots Michael Myers, she goes like, "I shot him in the head! I shot him 7 times!"
No, I want to see her like shoot him. I want to see him like grab Allison or something and just like, "Come and get the little girl!" And just like drop a chain net on him and shoot him with tranquilizer darts.
Or just jump on Allison, like, "Don't you remember what he did? He took the knife and he stabbed your mother." Look. Oh my god. Oh, cookie woman. Anyway, I'm just gonna start quoting Loomis, and I can't. Okay. So what about you, Zach Cherry? What's your choice? Did I choose your choice?
Well, no, I mean, like, I probably would have said that was my number one choice, but it's also very, for 2 weeks in a row, you've been very basic. So, how dare you? I'm going to say, let's go with Aaron Corey, the podcast.
Oh, good choice.
Because, first of all, I don't even know this just seems like the shittiest fucking podcast that they've got going on as we podcast ourselves. And I love his he's almost like when they pull up to the gate, it's funny because they're like, Laurie's like, "What do you want?" And he's like, like he's almost like embarrassed to say it, like, we're podcasters. It's like, and then she's
like, "We're investigative journalists."
Yeah. Like,
how does $3,000 sound?
Yeah, fucking inciting all that, like the riot in the prison yard, pulling this fucking mask out of the bag, just egging him on, not even being successful in it. And I know this is not canon. There's a deleted scene where he puts the mask on when they're back at the motel room, and she's in the shower.
I did see
and to
that,
scare. It's in the trailer, I think. There's something in the trailer just to scare her, and just just stupid shit like that. What else? Also, just like when they go to the grave, because the grave keeper, because she's like having a conversation with them, they like completely ignore her, and he sits down and he's just like takes out his dictaphone, and he's just like, "As she sat there combing her hair, he crept up behind her."
Pretentious fuck.
Yeah. So fuck that guy and his stupid podcast and his friend at the DA's office and what have you. I don't know. It would have been more interesting to find out if he stole the mask.
I also want to ask you, like, okay, since they're like dual podcasters, as are we, and I'm just putting myself in her shoes, because he did a really shitty job of he tried. Yeah. He did a really shitty job of defending her, and also she didn't really do much. They were both defending themselves, really, because that's what more could you do. But I don't know. I was just wondering, okay, to what end would you go to help me if you knew Michael Myers was in the public
loo.
restroom with me, and I'm like screaming in the loo, and I'm screaming, Zach and Cherry, what would you do? Would you try to save me, or would you call the police? What would you do?
I mean,
the time you're taking to answer this is priceless.
maybe I would like open the door and I would like throw the crowbar over to you so you could defend yourself.
After you see a man's jaw completely pulled out of his mouth, his toothless mouth, his skull is like dislodged and everything, and you see another like man laying without his jumpsuit on the floor, and you're just gonna like open the door and throw the crowbar.
Like, here you go. Not even throw. No, I would slide it across the floor to you.
Slide.
So you could get it underneath the.
How would you know where I was?
Because I can see your head is like right next to the toilet.
So you would like peek. You'd peek before. You wouldn't just like open the door and just throw a crowbar and just.
Well, no, because I would have to crouch down to the floor to slide it to you.
Okay, so you would.
We are
wow,
okay.
The gallantry.
We are going on far too long here.
That is true. Vote your conscience, vote your heart, people.
You've got Dr. Sartain, you've got podcaster Aaron,
Corey.
What a great group of nominations there. So anyway, if you guys are new to the podcast and you're watching us on YouTube, you can also listen to us. Stream us. The RSS feed link is in the descriptions down below. If you are listening to us and you want to watch the videos, you can go to YouTube. The Cherry Picker is the channel name. Subscribe to us there. You can also follow us on Instagram at the Cherry Picker Pod. Sorry, I had
the one.
Brain fog there. If you'd also like to support the podcast, you can support me on my Patreon account, Zach Cherry. Every tier gets early access to all episodes, but if you do sign up to the Freddy Krueger tier, then you will get access to our bonus episode that we do once a month. This month is Buffy the Vampire Slayer Season 1, so that's probably already out by the time this releases, but we discuss, analyze, and rank all 12 episodes from that season, so that's for August.
It's a dilly.
Yeah, we'll have something new in September. And social media wise, where can they find us individually?
Just type Edward is Truth, one word, into whatever social media site you want and see if you get a result. You'll find me on Instagram and YouTube only.
There's you get more and more blasé with that every time. You can find me on Instagram at retrobitchface. I'm on Twitter at ZachCherry8, and I got my YouTube channel, Zach Cherry with a K, ZACK Cherry.
Yay!
Right? Yeah. What do we got going on next week? I was gonna say that I actually forgot because I do have brain fog because I forgot a whole thing because we do have new Patreon supporters that I have to welcome.
Oh, do that.
Yeah. It's a thing, but I would love to welcome aboard Jacob Flores, Dawn Brown, and Victoria Scott Romanchuk. Welcome aboard. I'm so sorry, I almost forgot to say that. And of course, I also want to thank Andre Felix, who is our editor, who is currently going through this and probably being like, what is going on?
These twin madmen, my goodness.
Yeah.
The likes of which I've never seen. But whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. What is going on next week?
I remember it's a film called Tenebrae by Dario Argento.
Okay, I was wondering where you were going with that. Dario Argento.
I'm
So really one of my
I'm
favorite
tired.
horror movies ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it will be yours.
You showed your
soon.
hand.
Yeah. Who cares?
Tune in next week to find out how I feel about it.
I think it's also going to be very favorable. But anyway,
we'll see.
Thank you for. We'll see. We will. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and we will be right back.